Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes. Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes. Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes. Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Hey guys, I had to jump back on here. In our last video, for some reason, I was wondering why there wasn't many people. I don't really go live. I normally just create videos, but I was wondering why I wasn't able to see anybody in the live. But when I went to YouTube, for some reason, it wasn't sharing. So I was like, okay, let me go out and come back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish. We were reviewing the video that Don Lemon did. So this is just going to be part 2. Like I said, I normally don't do live, so I can understand why, too many people didn't join in. In all honesty, my audience, the majority of my audience is not live right now, but that's fine because they can just catch the replay. But I wanted to get back into this video. We were into Don Lemon's video, and I wanted to react to that. Excuse me. So we're going to jump right into where we left off.
Next is Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kennedy, good to see you again.
geez.
Thanks for being
Okay.
here before the committee.
Can we listen to
One
Amy
of the beauties of our
Klobuchar?
country is we have foundational documents that point us in the right direction. I think it's
why you would put him on the list of deep state as a former Attorney General, Trump Attorney General of the United States, because he wouldn't break the law for Donald Trump. Is that why?
Absolutely not.
As you know, he repeatedly told the president in no uncertain terms that he did not see evidence of fraud that would have affected the outcome of the election. Did you say in February of 2021 that the election stuff was never my job and I stayed out of that stuff?
Again, I don't know what comment you're referring to, but I'm sure you're reading a piece of something.
You said it on Pushback on a podcast. Is it true, though, that in December of 2020, you reached out to the Trump acting deputy attorney general?
Okay, guys, let me just say something because I don't know if this is the previous group that was in here prior. So what we're doing, we're actually reacting to Don Lemon's video. Now, if you guys don't recall, there was two airplanes. There was a helicopter and another airplane collided, and everybody except for Maga they're pretty much saying these people were short-staffed. Donald Trump laid off hundreds of people, and they're pretty much blaming it on him. Of course, he has blamed it on everybody and every president, including Obama, but has not taken responsibility for himself. So that's what we're doing. We're just reacting to this particular video.
And asked him to investigate a conspiracy theory claiming that people in Italy had used military technology and satellites to remotely tamper with voting machines in the U.S. and switch votes for Trump from Trump to Biden. Is that true?
What was the date?
That was out of December of 2020.
I was chief of staff to the Department of Defense, so I don't believe that's accurate in any
Okay,
way.
that came out of testimony before Congress. I will give it to you. Have you referred to the media as the most powerful enemy of the United States that they have ever seen? Is that right?
Again, you're reading a quote. I take that
Speech
you're
to
reading it
CPAC
accurately.
22324.
Okay,
You
let's
said
listen to
we're gonna
Tulsi
come
Gabbard
after
now.
the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden.
To me, you recognize that you have an independent obligation to follow the law. I think that's a constructive answer. Let me turn now to the matter of spying on journalists. You wrote in your response to the committee questions that you support the Biden administration Department of Justice's policy restricting the collection of reporters' records, and you called for the codification of those restrictions. Will you reconfirm that position this morning?
I believe strongly in the First Amendment, which protects a free press.
So you will, in effect, say that you will continue to support the Biden administration policy to protect journalists?
I'm not familiar with the specific Biden administration policy, but I believe strongly in the defense of the First Amendment.
It is a policy that restricts the collection of reporters' records, and you have called for the codification of those records. So I am going to accept that you're not changing your position, and I appreciate it. I got time, I think, for one more question. While you were in Congress, you introduced legislation prohibiting the government from mandating that Americans' phones or apps include mechanisms to allow the government to bypass encryption or other privacy technology. In your written responses to the committee questions, you reconfirmed your opposition to these mandates. Is that still your position?
Yes, these back doors lead down a dangerous path that can undermine Americans' Fourth Amendment rights and civil liberties.
You are being very helpful by moving so quickly. Let me turn to whistleblowers. You wrote in your response that whistleblowers must have clear, protected channels to report concerns, including the unauthorized transmittal of classified information to appropriate entities such as members of Congress. Do you agree that IC whistleblowers must have a clear path to this committee and that they don't need permission from agencies to talk to us? That's a yes or no.
Senator, the answer is clearly yes. I would like to state a few other actions I would take if confirmed
Okay,
as Director
so there
of
you go.
National
These hearings,
Intelligence.
and
Is
again,
number
and
one,
you
make
know
sure
my
that we
position
don't-
on all of these things is that many of these people, much of them, are not qualified to be in these positions. So they're qualified for the American people to be elected if they want to elect them. But for Tulsi Gabbard to be the head of Intel, come on, give me a break. Kash Patel to be the head of the FBI, give me a break. RFK Jr. to be the head of HHS, give me a break. Pete Hegseth to be the head of the Defense Department, give me a break. Now, some folks may not be able to say that in legacy media, but we can. It's the truth. They should have postponed these hearings. They want to push these along. The plane crash will drown this out, says IV4. And thank you for your support of independent media. I don't know why they did not postpone these, considering the nation's attention is turning to what happened in Washington, D.C. And I do believe that these hearings are taking the nation's attention away from this. How much longer do you think this is going to be a big thing playing out when our attention spans are so short? That's how we got here in the first place. With the short attention spans, romanticizing history, believing that a television show based on a fake character about a celebrity who fires people and it does good business, that's how we got here. The shiny object, or objects that lead us away from the truth of what's really going on, the sleight of hand, the people who are taking advantage of you and getting you to fight amongst yourselves as they are enriching themselves and lining their pockets. That's how we got here. I'm really torn, guys, about whether I should wait for Donald Trump or not. I don't know if I want to bother you with that. I don't know if you guys want to hear it. If you do, then that's your own business. I don't want to push it on you. It's just, a tough place to be when someone has a microphone open, by the way.
I don't know. Did any of you guys vote for Donald Trump? If you did, how do you feel? And if you did vote for Donald Trump, why? And what exactly were you thinking? What were you thinking?
When you know that what you're going to hear from this podium is not going to be based in fact. And it's going to be politicized to the height. When you know that is going to happen. Now, again, this press conference is supposed to start at 11 a.m. And usually he's raring to go to get in front of the folks. Raring to go. And he's late. Look, I have no idea why he's getting his stuff together. I hope that he is. In the meantime, before we move on, we're going to continue. Don't worry. I like to ask you guys questions. I like your feedback, and I want to know what you have to say. So that's why we're going to go to the comments. Let me just say, thank you, Chloe. Welcome to the Lemonation. Thank you so much. They want people looking away during these hearings. Of course, they won't cancel them. Thank you, Chloe, for that. And thank you for your support of independent media. I appreciate it. Carol Campbell, because of Carol's generosity, 50 people become members of the Lemonation. Carol Campbell, thank you so much. Carol obviously loves the truth that she gets here, and that we do not sugarcoat it, and we do not insult her intelligence by pretending something has happened and something is not. Thank you, El Crisp. I'm glad you recognize it. El Crisp says, I got the same polo sweater. That is, El Crisp, that is a sharp eye. This was a gift, by the way. The VB, thank you for your support of, very generous support of independent media. You said, hi, Don, thanks for all your hard work. So happy you can speak the truth without being controlled by corporate media. Best move was to get away from CNN to show your true talents to the people. Thank you for that. I appreciate your thoughts on that. And thank you for your support again of independent media. And a lot of folks in there agreeing. And again, Nellie Barretto, welcome to the Lemonation. Happy Hot Mama, welcome to the Lemonation. For all of you who are here and are new members, we welcome you and we're glad and grateful for your support. We're waiting for the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to show expertise.
Okay, guys, here
Donald Trump.
Here he goes. This is crazy. Now listen.
I'd like to request
Turn it up,
a
Andy.
moment of silence for the victims and their families, please.
This is who you guys elected. Maybe not you guys, but apparently this is who people, the majority of the people voted for. Not me.
Thank you very much. I speak to you this morning in an hour of anguish for our nation. Just before 9 p.m. last night, an American Airlines regional jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3 military service members over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., while on final approach to Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft crashed instantly and were immediately submerged into the icy waters of the Potomac. Real tragedy. The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal. And I have to say, the local, state, federal, military, including the United States Coast Guard in particular, they've done a phenomenal job. So quick, so fast. It was mobilized immediately. The work is now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly. And we are a country of really, we are in mourning. This is really shaken a lot of people, including people very sadly from other nations who were on the flight. For the family members back in Wichita, Kansas, here in Washington, D.C., and throughout the United States and in Russia, we have a Russia contingent of very talented people. Unfortunately, were on that plane. Very, very, very sorry about that. Whose loved ones were aboard the passenger jet. We can only begin to imagine the agony that you're all feeling. Nothing worse. On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now and in the days to come. We'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy Potomac, it was a cold, cold night, cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished and will no longer be with us.
This dude is
Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold
talking about?
Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years, I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think
Here we go. Blame the
pretty good
Biden.
ideas.
Here we
But we'll find
go.
out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing
Woo.
like this ever happens again. The FAA and the
This mother
NTSB and the U.S.
under
military will be
my
carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation.
If Obama was this stupid, they would still be talking about it today. Why is white ignorance accepted? You can be white and stupid all day. Black people, we have to go to college. We got to constantly be approved for our work. Everything we do at work is not enough. They want us to do more. But yet a white person, they can be dumb. They can be stupid. They can say shit that don't make sense. And y'all just go with it.
Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job. When that happened, it's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards.
We must have the highest standard, but we have a 3940 felony with 4 more felonies in the state of Georgia that's been halted because now he is the con thug president. But now we want to talk about standards.
From very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed.
Psychologically superior people. This dude should have been a comedian, because if you think he does not need to have a psychological evaluation, you probably need to have one yourself.
To qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to.
Keep listening and watch how he talks about the mentally disabled and the mentally ill as if he's not a mentally disabled and a mentally ill himself.
Getting there, when I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence. And
This is Obama's fault now.
we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office
Blame it on Obama, blame it on the black man.
and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before.
Here's the Biden fault.
Uh-oh, it's the Biden's fault.
Put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first.
It's the Democrats.
And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our
He signed an executive order firing people. This man is totally crazy. He signed, yes, he did sign an order and he fired those people.
higher standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it.
Isn't that funny? We can't have regular people. This dude is not even damn regular. He is a day away from actually being committed to a mental institution because he rambles, he talks and writes at a sixth grade level. Who even understand what the hell he's talking about?
But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office.
Oh, and buckle up because he's finna blame the black people. Y'all know it's coming.
And here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities.
Oh, blame the crazy people. This dude is crazy.
That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the.
So now we want to talk about people with disabilities. This is the fool that you all elected to the White House. Now we want to make fun of people with disabilities as if we don't have one that's in the White House. A disability is a disability. It does not mean you cannot do your job. It does not even mean that you can't perform in your job. We have people in this country that has disabilities. What in the hell does that mean? I mean, you all elected a person that probably need to be on antidepressants. That's actually in the White House.
The workforce, and they want them in, and they want them. They can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration. This was before I got to office recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people.
Can you imagine? It's the black people. It's the Mexicans. Oh,
That are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have.
their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Where in the did y'all get him from? Where did you get him from? Take him back.
Brilliant people
This is
have to be in
unbelievable.
those positions, and their lives are actually.
Listen, and I don't even care at this point who I offend, because I don't give a about Donald Trump nor his supporters. If you voted for this fool, you deserve every single thing that you get. Because if you don't think that this man is evil and that he's mentally incompetent, it could only mean one thing: that you're just like him.
Shortened, very substantially shortened, because of the stress where you have many, many planes coming into one target. And you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism.
Oh my God.
All qualify.
Psychiatric disability, that is definitely something he has, but how does a president make fun of people with disabilities? I mean, just because you haven't been diagnosed with your disability, Ronald McDonald, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Because if anybody think that you are normal and you have 39 felonies, you live in a delusional. You're delusional. You're the president. You can't even vote right now. Like, how is this man a president? Like, what does even 39 felonies mean? Like, I don't even know. Can somebody let me know what that actually means? And why do we have a damn thug criminal, mentally ill man off his medication, undiagnosed in the White House?
For the
Oh my
position
God.
of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring
God.
into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little.
You know what? Hate is a strong word. And you know what? I don't think I hate anybody, but I hate this. I do. I really do. I hate him.
Runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan.
Oh
Think of
my
that.
God.
The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan.
Here's the deal. If you voted for Donald Trump, I don't even like you.
And which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe
Oh my
this is
God.
the reason. The FAA.
This retard just makes up shit as he go along, and y'all go right along with it. I said this on TikTok, and I'm gonna say it here. If you voted for Trump, you are in for a rude awakening, because this is what I said, and I mean this. If you voted for Trump, it's simply because his behavior is reflective of who you really are. His hatred is reflective of who you really are. Because who in their right mind, unless they're mentally ill like him, who could vote for him? Who could vote for a man that pumps hate and racism into the economy? Who?
Which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
What did I tell you?
That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as
Everybody is a disaster but him and his effed up haircut.
a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation, his government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity. Wow. So I had to say that it's terrible. Then it's A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there. And we took care of African Americans, Hispanic Americans. We took care of everybody at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's one of the reasons I won. But they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent. But now we mourn and we pray, and would like to ask all Americans to join me in a moment of silence as we ask God to watch over those who have lost their lives and bring comfort to the loved ones. And I just want to say God bless everyone in this room. This has been a terrible, very short period of time. We'll get to the bottom of it. So we all saw the same thing. We've seen it many times. I've had the honor of hearing tapes. Tapes are scary, very scary tapes. You had a airliner coming in, American Airlines. He was doing everything right. He was on track. He was the same track as everybody else. They came in. It's probably the same track as they've had for 25 years or more. He's coming in the path. And for some reason, he had a helicopter that was at the same height, obviously, when they hit, but
Now he's using his imagination because he wasn't there. He hasn't confirmed anything. He's just using his 6th grade education imagination.
pretty much the same height and going at an angle that was unbelievably bad. When the air traffic controller said, do you see, he was talking about, do you see him? But there was very little time left when that was stated. And then also he said, follow him in. And then almost immediately after that, seconds after that, there was the crash that took place. Well, you follow him in, that means like everything's fine. Follow him in.
Oh my God.
You had a pilot problem from the standpoint of the helicopter. I mean, because it was visual. It was a very clear night. It was cold, but clear.
What?
And clear as you could be. The American Airlines plane had lights blazing. They had all of their landing lights on. I could see it from the Kennedy Center tape. We had a tape up on the Kennedy Center. That seems to be the primary thus far. I'm sure we'll see other tapes because it's such an area where there
This is outrageous.
A lot of cameras looking up
Making fun of people with disabilities, by the way.
Space. So we'll probably see many.
But of course, MAGA didn't hear or see that. He's clearly making fun of people with special disabilities. But as I stated, this man has a disability himself. I mean, I know I used to work with kids with disabilities, so I definitely know an adult with an undiagnosed disability.
Many other shots of it before.
It is
too
painful
much
to
time goes
watch.
by. But we had a situation where you had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly.
Oh my God, he's an
It had
expert.
the ability to go up or down.
Oh my
It
God.
had the ability to turn. And the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously.
I just want to know, like, who actually voted for Trump? Like, I'm going to look at the chat. If you voted for Trump, put a 1 in the chat, because I just want to know, like, I am not like a politician. I don't know everything, but what I do have is common sense. And I just don't understand, why in the hell did you vote for Donald Trump? I mean, when Donald Trump was the president and he wasn't reelected, do y'all know how many people lost their lives due to COVID? Because he didn't know what the hell COVID was. He's just a whole complete idiot.
And it did somewhat the opposite of what it was told. We don't know that that would have been the difference because the timing was so tight. It was so little. There was so little time to think. But what you did have is you had vision. The helicopter had vision of the plane because you had vision of it all the way, perfect vision of it all the way from at Kennedy Center where the tape was taken. And for some reason, there weren't adjustments made. Again, you could have slowed down the helicopter substantially.
I mean, no accountability. He mentions nothing about all of the people that he laid off that works for TSA. Now, some lady put in my comments and she said, TSA, those are the people that work in the airport. Those are not, TSA is just not the people that work in the airport, ma'am. TSA is it can be a large variety of different jobs, but with this particular, where he fired all of these people, these were head positions where he fired the head person in charge and hired his cronies. So when you talk about what happened, he is definitely to blame, because if you're firing hundreds of people, where they are already short-staffed, like, what do you think that does to that workforce?
You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned.
Now keep in mind, people has lost their lives. Imagine, this being one of your relatives and listening to the president talk about, you should have went up, you should have went down, you could have did a whole bunch of stuff. This is crazy.
You could have done a million different maneuvers.
So now he's an aviation expert. Oh my God.
Kept going and then made a slight turn at the very end. And by that time it was too
You could have made a slight turn, it's your fault.
late. They shouldn't have been at the same height, because if it was at the same height, you could have gone under it or over it, and nobody realized, or they didn't say that it's at the same height. At the same height, it wouldn't have been great, but you would have missed it by quite a bit.
Oh my God.
1,000 feet higher. It could have been 200 feet lower, but it was exactly at the same height, and somebody should have been able to point that out. So all of this is going to be studied, but it just seems
You should have been able to point it out. It's your problem.
to me, from a couple of words that I like to use, the words common sense, some
Told you didn't have common sense. It's your fault.
really bad things happened, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened. So you had a helicopter going in an identical direction. You had a helicopter that was at the exact same height as somebody going in essentially the opposite direction. You had a plane that was following a track, which is a track that every other plane followed. And I don't imagine, I know I've heard today that they might have been following the preceding plane, which was pretty close, but not that close, the preceding plane. But you wouldn't have even been able to see that because of the direction that the helicopter was coming in at. So you had a confluence of bad decisions that were made. And you have people that lost their lives, violently lost their lives. We're going to take a few questions. I'd like to ask our new Secretary of Transportation to say a few words. Sean Duffy, great gentleman, just started. It's not your fault, and I know you agree with me very strongly on intellect and even psychological well-being of the air traffic control. It's such an important position, and I think I can't emphasize stronger. I changed it when I first ran in 2016. I changed it. We had the highest standard that you could have, and then they changed it back. That was
This is really bad.
a standard. I read it to you. That was from one of your papers. One of the people in this room actually wrote that. And then I changed it back a few days ago. And
oh my God. All I can say, I have no idea. I have no words, guys.
We don't know that necessarily it's even the controller's fault. But one thing we do know, there was a lot of vision, and people should have been able to see that, at what point do you stop? At what point do you say, wow, that plane's getting a little bit close? So this is a tragedy that should not have happened. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would just note the president's leadership has been remarkable during this crisis. We've had a whole of government response, local, state, federal. And when you see that kind of cooperation, it begins with the leadership in this body. So thank you for that, Mr. President. You make our jobs a lot easier. You made an important point that when we deal with safety, we can only accept the best and the brightest in positions of safety that impact the lives of our loved ones, our family members. And I think you make a really important point on that, Mr. President. That is the motto of your presidency, the best and the brightest, the most intelligent coming into these spaces. I want to take a moment and extend my condolences to the families of the loved ones. We commit to them that we are going to get to the bottom of this investigation, not in 3 years, not in 4 years, but as quickly as possible with the NTSB, who is here today, as well as the FAA. What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. And when Americans take off in airplanes, they should expect to land at their destination. That didn't happen yesterday. That's unacceptable. And so we will not accept excuses. We will not accept passing the buck. We are going to take responsibility at the Department of Transportation and the FAA to make sure we have the reforms that have been dictated by President Trump in place to make sure that these mistakes do not happen again. And again, I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. President. And I appreciate the confidence you placed in me. Thank you.
Pete, would you like to say something?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Again, I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary said about your leadership from the moment
Why
we found
is
out about
Pete
this, we were
Hegseth
in
up
contact
there?
with the White House trying to determine exactly what happened. I would echo it as well. No excuses. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Why is he up there? What is the reason
first
for
and
Pete
foremost,
Hegseth
from
to
the
be
Defense
there?
Department want to pass our condolences.
Well, I guess
to
it's a military
64
plane,
souls
so maybe I take that back.
and their families that were affected by this. Never should happen.
He is the
And
defense
certainly
secretary.
the 3 service members, the 3 soldiers, young captain, staff sergeant, and the CW2 chief warrant officer on a routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. I think the president is right. There was some sort of an elevation issue that we have immediately begun investigating at the DOD and Army level. Army CID is on the ground investigating. Top tier aviation assets inside the DOD are investigating, sir, to get to the bottom of it so that it does not happen again, because it's absolutely unacceptable. But I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary and you, Mr. President, said, because it pertains to the DOD as well. We will have the best and brightest in every position possible. As you said in your inaugural, it is colorblind and merit-based. The best leaders possible, whether it's flying Black Hawks and flying airplanes, leading platoons, or in government. The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir, and we'll stand by you on it. Thank you.
JD, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I just want to reemphasize something the president said, and you've heard from the Secretary of Transportation and of Defense. There really was a whole of government response. We were all on the phone. We were all communicating yesterday, trying to get to the bottom of this immediately, but also try to communicate with the American people about what happened. Something the president said that I think bears reemphasizing, which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control. And we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job. If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, on DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very
He said brain power, and we are still trying to know what yours
The
is.
important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior. And that's what we're going to have. Yeah. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, you mentioned at the top of the briefing that there were several Russian nationals on the flight.
Yes.
Will the U.S. government be willing to facilitate the transfer of their remains, considering
we
the
will.
fact there is no direct air travel between the two countries?
We've already been in contact with Russia, and the answer is yes, we will facilitate. Yes. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. The situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is getting worse, even though President John Lorenzo has been mediating the conflict between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo because he wants to bring peace and stability. The situation is really bad right now. I want to hear from Mr. President if you have any plan in the future to bring peace in the
Well, you're
Democratic
asking me a
Republic
question
of the
about
Congo.
Rwanda, and it is a very serious problem. I agree, but I don't think it's appropriate right now to talk about it, but it is a very serious problem.
Even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families
They
to
are
hear you
a
blaming
group of
DEI
people that have
policies?
lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question.
But are you
I'm
blaming-
surprised coming from
Are
you.
you blaming air traffic?
Please.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for being here. Based on your analysis so far, do you have a sense of who was at fault? If it was the plane, the helicopter, air traffic control, and can you assure people that it is safe to fly in and out of DC?
Well, I've given you the analysis, and the analysis
Oh my
was,
God.
It was based on vision. You had a lot of people that saw what was happening. You had some people
have
that
no words.
knew what was happening. There was some warnings, but the warnings were given very, very late. Those warnings were given very late. It was almost as they were given a few seconds later, there was a crash. It should have been brought up earlier. But the people in the helicopter should have seen where they were going. I can't imagine people with 20/20 vision not seeing, what's happening up there. Again, they shouldn't have been at the same height. You're going in reverse directions or sideways directions. Obviously, you want to be at different heights. I see it all the time when I'm flying. You have planes going in the opposite. They're always lower.
Oh my gosh,
we're
guys.
higher.
I just
So
can't
if
believe it.
somehow there's a
Can't-
screw
I
up.
don't know.
There's not going to be a tragedy. It'll be close, but
I just
there's
can't
never
believe
going to
it.
be
I
a
have no
tragedy
words.
if you're at a different elevation. For whatever reason, they were at the same elevation. And also, from the American Airlines Center, he's along the track that every plane is along. You say, what was a helicopter doing in that track? It's very sad. But visually, somebody should have been able to see and taken that helicopter out of play, and they should have been at a different height. around that.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned the Russians that were on board that plane. What other nationalities were on board that passenger?
There were a
jet?
couple of others. We're going to be announcing it in about an hour. We have some very specific information. We're calling the countries. We've spoken to most of them, but there were some other countries represented.
Spoken to President Putin?
I have not, no.
Mr. President, on your executive
Not about this.
On your executive order, you've already issued an executive order. You say will restore aviation safety.
Right.
This crash happened after that. Was the executive order successful, and what more needs to change to keep people safe?
Well, we issued it 3 days ago, and we're in the process of making those changes. This is something that should have been done a long time ago. Actually, my original order should have never been changed, and I think maybe you wouldn't have had this problem. Maybe. Yeah, please, go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you. we see like everyday life that's very often those diversity hires cause sometimes issues, as you just mentioned. So what plan do you have? Are we going to see some fire? Are you going to fire some of those diversity hire in the federal government? What's plan do you have?
I would say the answer is yes. If we find that people aren't mentally competent, you see the language. The language is put out by them. And if you see that, I'm not going to bore you by reading it again, but these are not people that should be doing this particular job. They'd be very good for certain jobs, but not people that should be doing this particular job.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers. And one of the other things I will tell you is that the systems that were built, I was going to rebuild the entire system, and then we had an election that didn't turn out the way it should have. But they didn't build the systems properly. They spent a lot of money renovating a system, spending much more money than they would have spent if they bought a new system for air traffic controllers, meaning the computerized systems. There are certain companies that do a very good job. They didn't use those companies. They used companies that should not have been doing it. No, I think it's very important to understand that for some jobs, and not only this, but air traffic controllers, they have to be at the highest level of genius. Okay.
Even by Trump standards, this is.
I want to ask you about the ice skaters in a moment because the U.S. Ice Skating Committee was affected. But first, if I can, the cited FAA text that you read is real, but the implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under President Biden or the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is demonstrably false. It's been on the FAA's website. No, it's on the website, the FAA's website. It was there in 2013. It was there for the entirety.
What I read.
It was there for the entirety of your administration too. So my question is, why didn't you change the policy during your first administration?
That's the question.
I changed the Obama policy.
That's the question.
And we had a very good policy.
He's still talking about Obama. Obama? Why would we still be talking about Obama? When was the last time he was in office? Like, wasn't it like 10 years ago?
And then Biden came in and he changed it. And then when I came in,
dude needs to shut the F up, because guess what? You can't be this stupid. I don't care if you're the president. If you this stupid, you're this stupid, president or not.
And 2 days, 3 days ago, I signed a new order bringing it to the highest level of intelligence. Okay.
It's on the website.
Please.
Quiet.
Welcome back to the, I'm sorry. You mentioned that a vision was probably the problem that was at issue in this crash. There's been some reports that one of the pilots in the helicopter may have been using night vision equipment. Was there any?
I heard that. We don't know. We're going to know that pretty soon. It may change your view plane if you do have the night vision. So it's very possible that could have happened. That would be maybe a reason why you wouldn't actually see as well as on a clear night. You can see sometimes better without it. I have a couple of more.
Mr. President, is it helpful to have your Secretary of Transportation confirmed, and does this intensify your interest in getting other nominees confirmed quickly?
Go to what?
Is it helpful to have your Secretary of Transportation confirmed, and does this intensify your interest in getting other nominees confirmed quickly as well?
Well, sure. We want fast confirmations, and the Democrats, as you know, are doing everything they can to delay them. They've taken too long. We're struggling to get very good people that everybody knows are going to be confirmed, but we're struggling to get them out faster. We want them out faster. It's a good.
What about bipartisan? Why is it always Democrats, Republicans? Man, do the job that you were elected to do. Do the job, take your medication, check on your mental health, be the president that people, dumb, slow people, thought that you would be.
Good question, actually. We've been pushing Sean. Everyone knows Sean for a long time. He got many, many Democrat votes, but want to take as long as they can. They ask questions like some of the questions that Peter would ask that were totally irrelevant and not very good questions, but they want to just keep it going. They want to keep it going as long as possible. I was very honored, actually, that you got so many Democrat votes. That was
Okay, you guys pretty much get the gist and how this is going. Like I said, I just wanted to share the information, and you guys do with the information, whatever it is you want to do.